Thanks a lot for your very welcoming. May I present you the mille formes? It's very important to know that form, shapes, that's the same in France. Mille formes is a place for all kinds of imagination, to enter the imaginary, is to grow, to immerse oneself in the proposal of different artists. Here the materials are, no, that's not a good one, I'm sorry. Mille formes is an art initiation center for 0 to 6 years old that opened the doors in December 2019. This art center was created and built on the initiative of our city in partnership with the Centre Pompidou. It is important to briefly outline the history of the project, which itself outlines a possible learning path. Clermont-Ferrand joined forces with the Centre Pompidou, knowing that neither of them knew what to do, even though they both had the engineering resources immediately available for such a project. Together they launched prefiguration experiments aimed at sketching out what 1,000 forms, 1,000 shapes could be, envisaged from the outset as a free space for all, supervised by artists and early childhood professionals. A place where children would reveal themselves as prescribers, as I said before, of contemporary art for their own parents. I therefore propose that we visit it together, not only to explore this place, but this will be the most important part of my speech, to investigate briefly the specificities of mille formes, a place of learning, experimenting with new forms of learning, but also an experimental center that could be considered in the near future as a city factory of new urban shapes, able to provide reflection, able to be a creative and innovative stakeholder of our city, helping us to challenge the democratic, climatic and environmental issues. The essence of our approach is to ensure that the citizens of our cities from the early age will be sufficiently informed and well-trained to decide in the very next future, democratically, the different options to be taken in order to ensure our collective resilience. I'm not very used. So, you will read this slide, but for us, what is a learning form, a learning environment? 1,000 Shapes is for us a great opportunity to investigate, to rethink our learning forms, our learning environment, not only for the youngest, but also for the oldest among us. Educational institutions needs to become places where everyone is able to form and realize their aspiration for transformation, change, and well-being. Excellence, achievement, quality, measurement, and progress are also valuable commitments that can be realigned in ways that include rather than marginalized people. And this has to be done at a very early age. That's a learning form, that's the characteristic, and we have to change, and to change the actual characteristics to be resilient. Now, because now let's move from the going child to the reinventing city, reinvent our city. What is the shape of a city? You know, 1,000 shapes, 1,000 forms. What is the shape of a city? If you carry a classical reading of our city, its formation, transformation, its fabric, but also an analysis of its landscape, its visual characteristics, its evolution, you bring together two registers of them, the fabric and the landscape. The meanings of a urban landscape are aesthetic, artistic, stylistic, cultural, historically periodized. They are the individual and social variations of perceptions with their own connotations. Please take just a few seconds to read this text and replace children by citizens and learning and replace and learning with city. Just a few seconds. And you will be able to see the links between learning forms, learning environment, and urban shapes, which must be reinvented for some reasons to prepare us for ecological, social, cultural, management, and governance transformations of our cities that even the climate change brings. A major debate on the urban forms of the future has been launched on the basis of the issues of sustainable development, energy, but this register of urban form, as we can see, is closely linked to other registers. In addition to ecological issues, these meanings of a physical culture, nature, concern in the broadest sense the feeling of comfort, of well-being, of astonishment, and wonder that one can experience in a given space, in a given atmosphere. It's time for me to set out some of the principles that guide the experience of meal forms. 1,000 shapes. You can read the Julien Gracq and some other citations. But two children marvel at the snow factory, the work of a designer, Lucas Lorigeon, who was, as a child, often wondered how snow was made. He has created a kind of factory, a sphere in which balls rotate all day long. And for most children, it is a slightly hypnotic moment. Some of them marveling a long time, from several minutes. It's very interesting. Might be marveling is the first step in the discovery of art. But it is the same for a city. Just try to remember what you find wonderful about where you're living. Maybe the sky, the moon, the stars, Jupiter during the last few months. There is a poem by a French author, Charles Dobrowski. I tried to translate it. The sky gradually takes its revenge of the city that eats it. Snackily, it grabs the roof, crunches it like a nut. You know, you're in a city when you can hardly see the sky. Or more exactly, when the sky appears to us in frames, in cutouts, as in movies, it's films. A city that is kind to its citizen is a city that offers them the sky as a landscape of wonder. It's not a detail. When you build a new neighborhood, you should also think about the sky. Not make children torture their necks to see a cloud. Exploring, experiencing, surveying. Here is a work by Dominique Dalcan, a sound artist, a musician and composer, which proposed a musical cartography in space built around the face. Here you see a moth with his teeth, which by taking up the xylophone, where each key delivers a sound, turns out to be a sound space that the children appropriate with their whole body and gestures, with which, as we know, they communicate a lot. The idea was to have there, on a larger scale, a space where one could explore rhythm and modes of repetition and one's own, but which could also be explored by several people, and which each person would have to learn to listen to the others in order to find his or her own position as explorer. Each city, and more precisely, each of its micro-neighborhoods, emits a sound that we hear without listening, which is made up of a multitude of sounds that, for some of them, are difficult to isolate from one another. Even if we pay close attention, we may find ourselves bringing some of them to the forefront of our sensory perception in order to recognize and qualify them. The sound universe is constantly changing according to an infinite number of criteria: the wind, the weather conditions, the time of the day, the nature of the floor covering, the construction materials of the buildings around us, reflecting or distracting sounds, and so on. These sounds carry a bit of essential information which can play, as video game technology demonstrates, on the palette of our city emotions, ranging, for example, from fear to appeasement. This allows us to question the trivialization of the city's soundscapes and its causes, because we are not longer know how to listen. Loss of real hearing capacity in the population linked to mobile MP3 masterpieces and so on. Because of the permanence of an environment that is not always in tune with our own environment. Because of the permanence of a musical environment in all shops. Because the inventors of the video games, who are considerably interested by this question, would offer us desirable, standardized sound environments, which would send those of the real back to the inaudible. So, I know I have not so much time. I love this photo. Mid-form is the place of all kinds of information, imagination. And to enter the imaginary is to grow, to immerse oneself in the proposals of different artists. You see, I love this photo with two children contemplating their work, the path they have created at their feet. These two children are like cats who like to be high up. They have built comfortable place to sit, to stand. And just imagine this could be one of the high walls of the city, fitted out at its base to welcome passers-by, allowing them to stop, to inhabit it for a few moments, a wall that would no longer be an uncrossable, sinister, frightening frontier, but a space for socializing, for resting, for I don't know what you want. And to conclude, a learning city is precisely one that considers the transmission of knowledge to the greatest number of people as an essential antidote to the anxieties of the uncertainties. It therefore needs to build models of knowledge acquisition for all its citizens, associating the national education system, higher education, research laboratories, it's very important, popular education movements, association, groups of inhabitants, and so on. That is, with themselves a very wide range of actors, of stakeholders, themselves crossed by a multitude of representations of knowledge. This is precisely where the beautiful and pleasant complexity of learning cities lies, and with our twin sister Chișinău, sorry. And that is written in the PPT. Clermont-Ferrand welcomes you. Mid-form can be described, but the very best is experience it. And as Len Rachel Anderson said this morning, thanks for the mayor and for all the stakeholders of this forum. I'm very impressed by your beautiful city, where the footpaths allow prams to pass each other. I could say a battalion of prams, but it is also a couple of lovers can hold hands and stop to kiss without being jostled by others. I know that your urban plan is sharing these urban characteristics with many Eastern European cities, but I wanted to tell you that it is very modern, very contemporary, and an example for my own city to follow. Thanks a lot, and I'm sorry for my very bad English.
No, it's great.